Good morning, everybody. Jim Feist and Hank Goldberg here in Las Vegas. Hank, you had a pretty decent day on a rough Sunday. A lot of people separated the also-rans with the real contenders, but you came out even or a little bit ahead.
Well, actually, I came out ahead if people used our service because I gave out 3 winners. Minnesota I liked a lot, and that quarterback has really come to life, Cousins. And I really loved the confidence they showed in him when it got to be 35-30. And Detroit had moved the ball well against the Minnesota defense. And on a 2nd down and 6, when Minnesota had the ball, instead of keeping the ball on the ground, they ran a play fake, and Cousins threw a perfect strike for like a 40-yard completion. It was a great call on the coach's part, and I guess it was not. It was I think it was a 3rd and short, and everybody was jammed up against the line, expecting Minnesota to run the ball for a 1st down, or tried to, and he ran a play action pass. And his receiver was wide open, and he threw a perfect strike for 40 yards, and that put the game away, particularly for people who had given 2.5 points. So Cousins right now is probably showing his worth, and he's had 3 great games in a row, and this was against the Lions, who did play well for them. They got in the red zone and scored 3 times against the Minnesota defense, which surprised me a little bit. So I had that game. I had the Rams, which was an easy win against. Oh, by the way, Atlanta's in real trouble now because Ryan got hurt, and he's going to be out for a while. He's having surgery today.
Wow.
And I had Green Bay, and Rodgers probably had his best game in a while. He had 5 touchdown passes, and he ran for 1 touchdown against the Raiders. And the Raiders on the road again came up short, but against Rodgers, there wasn't much they were going to be able to do. And Jones is playing very well. He was catching passes this week. So, I also had Tennessee, which I played, and the Chargers didn't let me down. Fumbled on the goal line.
Yeah, the Chargers are pretty amazing. They do find ways to lose, don't they?
Yeah, so I didn't pick that game, but I bet it, and so I actually had a decent day. But the Philadelphia game really irritated me, and the Giants game irritated me very much. Jones played like a rookie, and Schumer is just a bad coach. He's dumb. They had it. First of all, Jones coughed the ball up twice early in the game, and I shouldn't sell Arizona short because Edmonds just gouged him, and they never made an adjustment. He was just running chunks of big yardage. They didn't beat him throwing the ball. It was Edmonds every time he carried the ball, gaining 1st downs on his carries on 1st down. And the Giants never made an adjustment defensively. But what really galled me was late in the game when Arizona was playing conservatively, and the Giants finally started to stop Edmonds. And with a little more than 2 minutes left in the game, they had a 4th and 15 on their own 30-yard line, and they went for it on 4th and 15 instead of punting. And I think I think they had the 2-minute warning, and they had a couple of timeouts left, and he goes for it on 4th and 15, and of course they didn't make it, and so they set up they set up Arizona to just run the clock out. That was one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen a coach make. 4th deep in your own territory, all you have to do is punt the ball. You got timeouts left. You're going to get the ball back, as it turned out. And you just handed them the game at the end because at that point, they were only 3 points down. They could have tied the game and put it in overtime. Or all they needed was a field goal at that point. That was just as stupid as it gets. That was the worst coaching loss, one of the worst I've ever suffered through. And I'm not one who just blames my losses on a coach, but he was out-coached significantly in that game. And he's just another bad coaching decision by the Giants. They got another loser in there.
Yeah, they blamed everything on Eli, and I guess it wasn't really all Eli, was it?
Well, Schumer's bad. He's just bad. He was a bad choice. And their defensive coordinator, they got rid of, a pretty good defensive coach. They let him go. And I looked up the guy who has the job right now, and he had never been a coordinator before, and he was promoted from the staff, and he's not qualified at all. I mean, he has no credentials to be a coordinator. He's learning on the job.
Let me ask you a question about the Chicago Bears. Their defense doesn't even look good anymore. I know Trubisky is a questionable quarterback, his performances and stuff, but they gave up a lot to the Raiders in London, and they gave up a ton yesterday to New Orleans. What do you think?
Well, a lot of it was Trubisky and New Orleans defense and special teams, so it wasn't all defense. But Trubisky had a bad game, which was predictable, and New Orleans is good. But the surprising thing was that they did it without their best running back.
Yeah, come on.
And they did score a lot of points. But, the Bears just don't have any offense. They don't have a quarterback.
No, it's a big problem. He showed signs last year of not developing as quickly as they had hoped, and this year he's actually worse.
Yeah, he's gotten worse. And the Saints are really good. Let's face it. And they're good on the road. They were on the road again this week for the second straight week. And, that quarterback is going to be, it's tough to say this, but it's going to be hard to put him on the bench when Breeze is ready to play.
Yeah, I know. That's really amazing. It's true. And Baltimore has developed their quarterback, Lamar, he was really sharp yesterday. Very tough.
Yep. He was. A lot of his yardage I think he had more rushing yardage than passing yardage. And eventually he's going to have to throw the ball in the game. But he threw the ball well when he had to against Seattle. Seattle has not been the team at home that they used to be. They haven't covered a spread at home this year.
No, they haven't.
And of course, yesterday they lost. But one thing about Baltimore is they do have a very good defense, and they came through when they had to. And although Seattle was in the game for a while, but Jackson had a very good game, and he's right now. Baltimore looks like they're going to cruise in that division. And the other game that was significant was Indianapolis, and they really played a great game against. I know a call went against Houston, but it didn't matter. Seattle really, Indianapolis really crushed them today.
It was and the Colts have played very well this year, but I'm not. Houston is a good team. They're both very good teams, and they'll probably, the way it's lining up, they'll probably both make the playoffs. One will win the division, the other will probably be a wild card, barring injuries. They're both playing very well, but the Colts looked great yesterday. That was one of my winners, and we were both on the same side there, so that was really good.
What surprised me was that all the injured guys who missed the game last week played, and the left tackle, by the way, did not have a good game for Dallas. he was getting beat significantly throughout the game, but it didn't matter. The two receivers were great, and both of them were iffy to play. But Darby did not play. By the way, as I said on Friday, I had heard that he wasn't going to play. He was on the active list, but he didn't get into the game. And without him, they only had Mills as their only healthy defensive back. And, Prescott really lit him up. And, of course, they had no answers for Zeke. He ran all over him. That was surprising. But to me, Wentz is not playing well. And he hasn't played well all year. And they're in a hole right now. They're a sub-500 team, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
I would actually agree with that because the NFC is very loaded, and there's a lot of good teams in the NFC. It's going to be hard for them to make it even as a wild card. That's really surprising. But their offensive line is not good. They've too many.
Well, Peters was hurt. That didn't help him any. Their left tackle. He didn't play yesterday.
Yeah, that's a big position.
And people are. I saw the commentator on ESPN, who I'm not crazy about, and he was on there saying, "Well, Dallas, really finally put it together after they did not play well last week." Well, they didn't play well last week because they had 8 starters out. The two offensive tackles didn't play. The 2 wide receivers didn't play. They had the 2 guys in the secondary that didn't play. 7 of the 8 guys came back and played this week. They had an excuse against the Jets. They were really banged up. It's not that they didn't show up last week.
Yep, and the injuries, watching the injury.
He never mentioned that in his analysis.
Well,
he just said that they finally woke up. That's unfair to Dallas.
A lot of these people don't know what they're talking about. The injury list is one thing you and I both go after. We try to find out who's playing, who's healthy, who's not, who's doubtful, all that stuff during the week. It's very important. I mean, if you get enough, especially cluster injuries, and especially offensive line, and especially left tackle. I mean, you get guys like that hurt and not showing up, it's going to be very difficult to play at your top level. The
left tackle it was obvious to me he wasn't quite ready. But as the game went on, he made a couple of significant blocks for Ezekiel. But on pass protection, he wasn't a big help. But they were getting the ball out of there fast. And, Cooper finally made a couple of big catches in the second half. And at that point, Philadelphia was a beaten team. And, the coach blames himself. Well, there's something wrong with that offense. I mean, and by the way, he was determined to run the ball. And he kept running the ball on first and second down, putting Wentz in a hole. So it was always 3rd and long, at least 3rd and 7 in a lot of instances. And Dallas was just teeing off.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When you do that, you put your quarterback in harm's way, and they, like you said, they just tee off. Yesterday was kind of a day that it happens every year where the pretenders separate themselves from the contenders, and I think we're starting to see who's good and who's really
not.
I
think that was just one game with that. I don't know where the other pretenders or where the other where pretenders didn't do well. The Giants, I think, were a little, they were, I guess, they hadn't been winning the last couple of weeks, and I think the surprise team is Arizona. But, Indianapolis is is a top-rated team. Buffalo won big. Minnesota won big. Green Bay won big. Jacksonville won big. The Rams won big. San Francisco did what they had to do in a monsoon. The Chargers have been bad all year. Baltimore won big. There were no big surprises. New Orleans, I think every team that was supposed to win pretty much won. So there were no pretenders around yesterday.
No,
I don't agree with that comment.
Well, I think you misunderstood me. Actually, you just said what the teams that won yesterday were the expected teams, and they did exactly what they're supposed to do. And teams like Seattle, who is not really a good team but has a great quarterback, showed up as a pretender. They're not strong. The Chicago is a pretender. They're not strong. Everybody expects them to be what they were last year, and they're not. And Philadelphia everybody thought Philadelphia was going to be one of the top 2 NFC teams, and they're not strong. So I think you're exactly right. The teams that we expected to win, not necessarily cover, but win, did. And I mean, the Rams bounced back. Of course, that's Atlanta they played. Jacksonville played well. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I meant. It's not that there was a separation. The pretenders did not do well. The contenders did well.
Well, Philadelphia, when I spoke to my guy from the Eagles, and I think I said this on Friday's show, he was very concerned because he told me that Darby wasn't going to be able to play, which he didn't, by the way. He wasn't on the inactive list, but he didn't play. They only have one starter in their secondary. And they lost Peters, their best offensive lineman. So, they've got, and they don't have their top offensive weapon, their only deep threat. So all those guys are hurt right now. So Philadelphia right now is really damaged goods as much as anything else. They're in the same position that Dallas was a week ago. They've got massive injuries on that team. And I spoke with a guy who works on the staff with Philadelphia who told me that he was real concerned going into this game because of all the guys they're missing.
Yeah, and the Dallas team got a lot of their players back from the previous week. You made a great point there. They
all came back. Every one of them was questionable as late as Friday. And they were hoping they were going to play. And every one of them played. Cobb and Cooper didn't practice all week.
That's right. Hank, we got another sport kicking off tomorrow, which is really big. We got a World Series that I don't think most people didn't expect to have the Washington Nationals facing Houston. We all knew Houston would be there, or thought they would be. But Washington has played really well, and they're a solid club with absolutely excellent pitching.
Well, Houston got a break in that the Yankee closer, gave up the base. When he gave up the base on balls, I knew they were toast. And Houston got the home run, which helped me because I had the over in the game, and the total was 9. And the 2-run homer won my play there. But they got the break because now they have Coles for game 1. And if they had to go to a 7th game, they would have had to use him in game 7, which would have not been good for him starting off the series. But now they have him for game 1, which means they'll have him for 3 games if they need him. I don't think they're going to need him for 3 games. But Washington comes in with some very strong starting pitching, but I don't think they're going to be a match for Houston's pitching right now. And I don't think it's going to be a long series.
Well, Houston's been there for a couple of years, and they're solid and not only their pitching, but their whole team. They're solid players. They come through in the clutch. But Washington has been red hot. They got there by knocking off a couple teams, and they did it easily. It's going to be it's in the total.
This ain't St. Louis they're playing.
No, that's
and the other thing is their defense. If Washington is going to score, they're going to have to hit it out of the park because I have never seen a defense in a long time as good as this one is. Those outfielders are making circus catches. That double play that they made against the Yankees, which kind of sealed the deal, they measure the speed on double play balls, and this was the fastest double play that the second baseman to the shortstop to first. Fastest second play in the history of playoffs.
Wow. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I love to watch these playoff games, and I like in all sports. I like the playoffs. You know, the teams are coming to play, and this should be interesting. And there's some great stars to be on the field. Of course, Houston has Altuve, who's absolutely amazing, and a bunch of other guys that are great. And Washington comes in with them. Rendon is a heck of a player as well, and they got a pretty good staff. And I guess they didn't need Bryce Harper to get this far.
I think that I think Houston is Golden State in basketball. That's how good they are right now.
And speaking of that, as a matter of fact, you bring that up, they start tomorrow as well, the NBA.
Yep.
Well, we are loaded with challenges right this time of year, Hank. Anything else you want to cover going on this week?
Yeah, Wisconsin got beat by Illinois. Nice win for Lovey. And I think that Wisconsin, that takes a little bit of a luster off the Ohio State-Wisconsin game.
Sure does.
But in classic case of, I guess maybe they were looking ahead, but still, they lost. That's one thing to not cover the points, but I mean, they were a significant favorite in that game, and they got beat.
30 or 31-point favorite. Yes, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I guess that was a big story out of the college weekend.
Sure was.
And that's it that I have.
All right, Hank, thank you much. We're going to have plays up each and every day, and go to jimfeist.com. Hank, we'll talk to you again on Wednesday.
Yeah, tonight, New England and the Jets. And I have a good prop for you.
Okay.
One of the McCourties will score more points than the Jets team.
Okay. That's that. I'll see if I can make that bet.
Okay.
Take care, Hank. Thanks.
All right, you too, Jim.
Bye-bye. Everybody, go to jimfeist.com. You can get our picks, and you can also register for a free play each and every day. jimfeist.com. Thank you.